Good evening, everybody. The Teleophthalmic Society of India, along with Eco India, welcome you all. Today's session of certificate course on refresher training for ophthalmologist and diagnosis and management of diabetic retinopathy. It is a sixth in the number, and today's topic is a very, very interesting topic: the telescreening in diabetic retinopathy, and it will be presented by our own 2C member, Dr. Sheila John. As you know, we were along with the Eco India, we have planned to educate, advocate the importance of diabetic retinopathy throughout all our country. Pan-India program. It is a Pan-India program, and we have started selecting some spokes from various parts of the country. In the last 7th July, we have launched this program. And this we called it as a refresher training for ophthalmologists. So those ophthalmologists who are practicing, particularly doing retina screening for diabetic retinopathy, this is mainly update knowledge for them. And we had already finished 5 sessions. So today the 6th session, another 2 sessions to go. And today's topic is a very interesting topic, as I already mentioned, the telescreening in diabetic retinopathy. And Dr. Sheila John is one of our speaker for today's evening. And this will be moderated by none other than Dr. Padmaja Rani. Again, she is another pioneer in teleophthalmology in our country. And along with me, our team members, Professor S. Natarajan, our president of TOSI, Dr. Kim, our president-elect, Dr. Rajiv Raman, Dr. Senthil, Dr. Sandeepak Rai, Dr. Abhishek Sachdeva, Dr. Ashok Tunda, and Dr. Kavita Rao, all are our experts for this program. And not but the least, our spokes, the viewers, those who attended this meeting, I welcome you all to this program. And this is the agenda of this program. So after my introduction, Dr. Padmaja Rani will start the program. And Dr. Sheila John will be presenting her case, also with a didactic lecture. And followed by one of the spokes, Dr. Anupriya has come forward to present a case, and we will discuss the management of this case. And of course, there will be panel discussion with a vote of thanks. Before we start the program, I would like to introduce our today's speaker, Dr. Sheila John. She is well known in our country. She is a consultant ophthalmologist from Shankar Nethralaya. She is working there since 1991 as a consultant. And she is currently the head of the Department of Teleophthalmology and E-Learning. She has been associated with the Community Ophthalmology Services of Shankar Nethralaya since 1992. She is a clinician, she is a surgeon, and also a researcher too. She has published several peer-reviewed publications in national and international journals on ocular ultrasound, genetic work, and retinal degeneration. She has received a PhD in teleophthalmology. So she conducted many teleophthalmology workshops in India and abroad to teach and train medical, non-medical staff to implement teleophthalmology that we are seeing today in the country. Her current research work on teleophthalmology has been published in national and international journals. She is also a PhD guide for IIT Chennai, and she has received a Lifetime Achievement Award from Lions Club International in 2018 for her community service. So I welcome Dr. Sheila John to this webinar to throw some light on the new entity that is teleophthalmology and how its role in the screening diabetic retinopathy. And of course, Dr. Anupriya is our spoke. She will be presenting a case. She is from Adesh Institute of Medical Science and Research, Bhatinda, Punjab. She is the student of Dr. Rajminder Kaur, one of the main participant of this program. I thank Eco India to provide this platform since last few months, and we will be also looking forward to work with them in the coming months also. So TOSI is the Teleophthalmic Society of India. It has been launched on 4th April 2021 with the aim to bring all teleophthalmology, telemedicine networks in our country and how it can help the human mankind, particularly in the COVID and post-COVID era, with having our president, Dr. Padma Shri Professor S. Natarajan, and whole team already explained. So we are looking forward to all the folks, all the viewers here to become member of the society and to work with us to carry forward this TeleTOSI in the community work, particularly the rural and the unreached areas of our country. So be a member of TOSI as I request everybody to become a member. I thank you. I welcome you once again to this webinar. Thank you. Now it's over to Dr. Padmaja. Please take over from me. And I've already introduced. If you want to say something about Dr. Sheila, you can very well speak, and we start the program. Thank you, everybody.
I think we have a doctor of teleophthalmology with us, means who has done PhD in teleophthalmology. I think her practical experience, and I had an opportunity even to go through her thesis. So I know how much work went in. So we are, I think it is very nice to listen to her. And diabetic retinopathy is one disease where, as you said, teleophthalmology has become much more important after the pandemic. But teleophthalmology was way back in 1987 itself. During NASA flight, first time teleophthalmology was utilized actually to observe actually the fundus images of the space flight, the astronauts. That is when actually the images were transmitted in 1987. So the retina is a perfect branch for teleophthalmology because with image we can diagnose so many things at distance. So I think we'll go ahead with Sheila's talk, and then as we go into the talk, then we will have discussion based on the interaction. Welcome,
I'd like
Sheila.
to mention that Padmaja has been a part of Shankar Nethralaya and has worked in the diabetic retinopathy project of Shankar Nethralaya, and she has several publications to her credit along with Dr. Rajiv Raman. I'd like to start my presentation. My topic for today is telescreening in diabetic retinopathy. A very interesting topic. The prevalence of diabetes worldwide is 20 to 79 years, 463 million. And by 2045, this will rise to 700 million. India, 20 to 79 years, 77 million. 1 in 6 adults with diabetes in the world come from India. Epidemiological studies have shown that 1 in 3 persons with diabetes have diabetic retinopathy, and 1 in 10 have sight-threatening diabetic retinopathy. Now, diabetic retinopathy in India, more than 77 million diabetic patients in India. Prevalence is 18 to 20% in the diabetic population, and 5 to 6% of sight-threatening diabetic retinopathy. Urgent referral of sight-threatening diabetic retinopathy is essential to prevent visual loss during the productive years of life. This is a need because we require preventive eye care through diabetic screening to prevent blindness. The American Academy of Ophthalmology annual dilated eye examination. Type 1 diabetes, 3 to 5 years after diagnosis and then yearly. Type 2 diagnosis, time of diagnosis and then yearly. Barriers: poor awareness, cost, lack of symptoms, the early stages, and poor geographical access. An estimated 1/2 of the diabetic population does not receive dilated eye examination. Late stages of the treatment is also very expensive. Now, telescreening is of 2 models. One is the ophthalmologist-based model and the ophthalmologist-led model. Ophthalmologist-based model, indirect ophthalmoscope and direct ophthalmoscope. Ophthalmologist-led model, it is fundus camera with retinal photographs. Basically, in telescreening, one ophthalmologist for 1 lakh population. So, ophthalmologist-based model is very difficult. And moreover, 70% of the healthcare resources are in urban areas. So ophthalmologist-led model is more practical to be implemented. The various models are mobile eye care services, vision centers, diabetic clinics and hospitals, ophthalmic clinic and hospitals. Now reaching the diabetic, he can be reached at various places like physicians, pharmacy, labs, eye hospitals, eye clinics, primary health centers, at camps, which are community camps, as well as DRS camps and home care. Telescreening components are technical requirements and connectivity, hardware and software, evaluating the fundus, which we use fundus camera, reporting diabetic retinopathy, human graders and artificial intelligence, and quality assurance metrics. Then the computer configuration which we need, either it can be a desktop or a laptop. Laptop is easier to be carried everywhere. The minimum processors Intel Core i5 and usually 8 GB RAM, 500 GB hard disk, Windows 10 and 64-bit. The screen resolution has to be 1960 1800 full HD. Microphone is inbuilt noise reducing microphone and speakers noise cancelling headphone. Camera is HD, 1080p, 328 megapixels, 30 frames per second autofocus. Some of the web applications which you have to access to feed in the results of diabetic retinopathy require Adobe Flash Player version 32 or latest. Now, the important thing here is image acquisition. They have to be DICOM, it is Digital Imaging and Communications in Medicine complaint. It recognizes the Joint Photographic Experts Group, which is the standardized loss compression mechanism for digital images as JPEG images to make the files smaller in size for transmission and storage. Image transmission, compression, retrieval, storage is via the picture, archival, and communication system, PACS, everything capitals, PACS. And the health level 7, EMR, and antivirus should be configured. Again, if you go into technical requirements, the standards given by the government for IT and telemedicine, as well as given by for healthcare, has to be followed. A consent letter or form should be taken, and the limitations of teleconsultation should be explained to the patient. To take connectivity, it can be satellite connectivity or internet connectivity. The hardware and software has already been explained. Image acquisition, when telescreening, there will be compression of the images because you're sending it from the rural side to the base hospital. So the amount of compression should be evaluated so there's no loss from the image. And security concerns for patient security should be taken. Training of staff is important. Norm and regulatory norms should be taken. Cost effective should be cost effective and self-sustaining. Which method is appropriate for DRS screening, real time or store and forward? It depends on the availability of the ophthalmologist. They're available, you can do in real time. Otherwise, it has to be store and forward. The advantages in real time is the patient will be there. So if you want some of the field to be taken and shown, that can be done. In store and forward, that's not easy. Now the fundus cameras, there's been a big transition in the decade. Tabletop fundus cameras are the traditional ones. They're bulky and you need a vehicle to carry them. The newer generations are ultra-wide field imaging fundus camera, which again is bulky and very expensive. So it is difficult to be implemented in the rural side or bring it in for screening due to its cost. The other one is Peak, the smartphone type of fundus camera, which is portable. How many fields of fundus photography are enough for DRS screening? Single field non-mydriatic technique of fundus photography was found to have a sensitivity and a specificity of 98% when compared with indirect ophthalmoscope. It is very important to remember here that other incidental fundus photograph findings or anterior segment findings of diabetic patients must be noted. So there should be whatever can be taken from the anterior segment photos and the posterior segment photos have to be noted. It might not pertain only to diabetic retinopathy. Non-mydriatic fundus photography, 10 minutes of dark adaptation for the right eye, and after 5 to 10 minutes for the left eye. Physiological dilatation, single field 45 degrees macula-centered fundus photography, reporting via ophthalmologist and non-ophthalmologist trained users. All ungradable images are referred to the ophthalmologist. You have to take it that all ungradable images are pathological and refer it. Either it can be cataract, punculoplasties, or it can be dark iridis, or autonomic denervation of the pupil is affected, so pupil is myopic. Now, how do you improve the gradability of the retinal images? In a study done by Raman et al., you can dilate after pupillary dilatation. The non-gradable fundus images can be reduced from 29.1% to 8.6%. Silva et al. Compared non-mydriatic ultra-wide field imaging with non-mydriatic multi-field fundus photography. And he found that the ultra-wide field imaging, 81% reduction in ungradable images and twofold increase in DR reduction. But the cost of the camera is prohibitive in implementing it right now. ETDRS 7 fields are the gold standard. When they are imaged with the ultra-wide field imaging, you can see that ultra-wide field imaging is 200 degrees and the peripheral lesions are well detected here. ETDRS classification as well as the international classification of diabetic retinopathy disease severity scale can be used. ETDRS is more used in research works, and the International Clinical of Diabetic Retinopathy is used day to day. It is divided into non-proliferative, mild, moderate, and severe, and proliferative diabetic retinopathy, macular edema with and without center involvement. Now, the American Telemedicine Association's guidelines for diabetic retinopathy, category 1, identifies patients' presence or absence of DR. Identifies patients with or without sight-threatening diabetic retinopathy. Identifies non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy, mild, moderate, or severe. And also macular edema, sufficient accuracy. Grade 4 is equal to ETDRS classification. The role of automated diabetic telescreening in India, one ophthalmologist per 100,000 population in India. So when we want to implement diabetic telescreening on a national level, due to lack of human graders, we need alternative methods like automated artificial intelligence to be used for retinal analysis of fundus photographs. Artificial intelligence or deep learning. Deep convolutional neural network is a black box. In India, Google system achieved a sensitivity of above 80% in sensitivity and specificity, both at Aravind Hospital and Shankar Nityananda. And the DR detection was either superior or comparable to the ophthalmologist reference standard. Now, the smartphone fundus camera with artificial intelligence. Radarajan et al. Was evaluated the performance of another offline smartphone system for the detection of referable DR by using images taken by smartphone. The sensitivity and specificity in diagnosing any DR was above 85%. Similarly, Rajalakshmi et al. Assessed the role of AI system for detection of DR in smartphone-based retinal imaging system. They also had a sensitivity and specificity which was above 80%. Now, telemedicine practice guideline, 24th March 2020. Here it is clearly stated that artificial intelligence, machine learning, will not be allowed to consult the patients or prescribe any medicines. It is only a clinical support system to assist and support the registered medical practitioner, and the liability is on the registered medical practitioner. Vision centers, medical equipment, slit lamp with camera, with fundus camera, and general medical examination. Hardware, as already mentioned, software, TeamViewer or Vibrio, and mobile ones. Here the patients can be examined and fundus pictures can be taken and DR screening can be done. Similarly, in mobile eye care services,
Ma'am, it's not audible.
Now for teleconsultation, at the base hospital, either you can have a computer, the data card, or you can have a central hub which has soundproofing as well as a high definition web camera, screen sharing of images, a 2 Mbps internet connectivity. At the CAM spot, again you have a laptop, the data card with 2 Mbps internet speed, but in remote villages, the internet speed is only 120 to 650 kbps, and software supports video conferencing at 384 to 512 kbps. Now in a diabetic clinic, non-mediatic fundus images are taken. All images are taken in a session and uploaded to a telemedicine platform, which is bundled with the fundus camera. And the ophthalmologist at the base hospital has a password, opens the images and gives the report. Here, what data will be given is patient's name, age, duration of diabetes, and if patient has any ocular surgery. Other examination of the anterior segment will not be there. Only the fundus, depending on the fundus photographs, you have to. In this case, was a case of we've had ventilated nerve fibers. Some of the trained graders thought it's diabetic retinopathy. So most of the cases of diabetic retinopathy graded by the trained graders has to be overseen by ophthalmologists to prevent more effects. Now the role of the reading center to grade retinal images, pathway 1, disease or no disease grading. This has 3 levels. Stage 1, the grader assesses a patient's images sets to classify into disease or no disease, that is the presence of diabetic retinopathy or no diabetic retinopathy. Urgent referrals passed for immediate assessment by an ophthalmologist. Stage 2, a random 10% of the patient's images, no disease image altogether. All the disease image sets are reviewed for a different grader. That grader should not see the result of the first grader prior to grading. Stage 3, this is carried out in all cases where initial full disease indicates evidence of diabetic retinopathy. All referable diabetic retinopathy is done by a different grader and various grades are given. This is to prevent unnecessary reference. In pathway 2, which is a full disease grading, there are only 2 stages. Stage 1, a grader carries out a full disease grade in all image sets, and if there's immediate reference, it is sent to the ophthalmologist. A different grader again assesses a random 10% of the images, no diabetic retinopathy, in all images with diabetic retinopathy. This is to maintain the standards. The arbitration grader is an ophthalmologist. The difference in opinion for grading, DR or reference. Human graders, certified leaders, less experienced graders, and ophthalmologists. Intra-rater reliability of a score is the consistency in ratings given by the person across multiple instances. Inter-rater reliability among the different human graders for diabetic retinopathy diagnosis using kappa statistics. fundus photographer are reliable graders. Many studies have been conducted. And the efficacy of DR detection, sensitivity and specificity should be greater than 80%. Now, the quality assurance standards are, there is international constraints that screening programs for DR should achieve at least 80% sensitivity and 80% specificity, with 5% technical failure rates. Fundus images must have good resolution and should be graded. Quality becomes important for DR grading screening process. The government of India has introduced non-communicable disease registry, nationwide diabetes registry to be maintained. Quality assurance, internal quality assurance that is integrated as part of the day workflow in the screening program measured against international standards. External quality assurance, which has three main functions: monitoring the ongoing program, performance against the standards, the organization of peer review, and administration of the external proficiency testing for graders.
नीले भी ना हर जगह नहीं जमते हैं, मतलब जैसे
scale up automated detection of DR. For automated retinal image analysis to be practiced in India, there's a need to have regulatory norms, licensure, and cost. DR algorithm software operates as a medical follows the international
ऑनलाइन इतने कोई वो नहीं होते. अगर ये साड़ी वैसे उठाने चलेंगे तो कितने
joint planning, implementation, monitoring of DR screening by ophthalmologists, pharmacy, and endocrinologists. We need medical practitioners and engineers to collaborate and work towards developing new technologies for DR.
अगर यही साड़ी थोड़ी सिल्क की या वैसी लेनी होगी वो पड़ेगी.
That will aid in disease identification. We need to have further work on adapting standard guidelines for adopting autonomic analysis for DR screening programs. When we want to implement DR screening, especially nationwide and rural areas, to identify 8 to 82% of diabetic patients by screening using DR algorithm, artificial intelligence by paramedical staff, which can be supervised by the ophthalmologist. To identify 18 to 20% of diabetic patients with DR and refer to ophthalmologists. And this will enable us to decrease the incidence of newfound adult blindness in diabetic patients at a national level.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Knowledge, attitude, and practice studies, educating them about diabetes and diabetic retinopathy. Awareness is an ongoing process and requires community involvement. Education communication materials are prepared after assessment of patients' knowledge of DM and DR. I've given the references where I have prepared. Now, a case study. One of the patients, Mrs. Chandra, age 49, other features are masked, has a history of diminution of vision with or without glasses, which is painless, gradual, for the past 1 year. No other associated symptoms. Previous history, no ocular injury, ocular surgeries, general surgeries, no allergies, and family history. Patient is a diabetic for 20 years on medication of insulin, 20 to 20 units. Refraction, the right eye 660 and N36, and no improvement with pinhole. The left eye is pointing fingers and less than N36. We have used Telenstat and near vision charts. Anterior segment within normal limits, intraocular pressure 18 mm of mercury. Fundus photographs, which is hemorrhage old, which is hemorrhage seen. The right eye viscous seen, and the left eye we are faintly viscous seen. And the below the macular area, you can see some kind of live tissue. It is diagnosed to have proliferative diabetic retinopathy in both eyes. General condition is diabetes. Patient has been advised to control diabetes. Ultrasound would be needed to evaluate the state of the retina. What you need is a vitrectomy with endolaser. If retina is attached, if retina is detached, you need a vitrectomy, endolaser, and silicone oil. Thank you.
I think Dr. Sheila, I think you touched upon very, very important aspects of teleconsultation, not just only about diabetic retinopathy screening, but what are the technical requirements. Anyone wants to start a telemedicine setup, probably your presentation will give all the important considerations. So in this connection, I want to ask you, for example, because your thesis was involved in AI, automated, like artificial intelligence. What do you think now at present? What situation, if we have a lot of algorithms which are available, which are more than 80% sensitive and specific to detect diabetic retinopathy? So what do you think, how, if you have a tool available, how we should integrate in the primary care?
In the rural terms, it's very useful to integrate. And as I've already mentioned, the fundus photographer who's there is well trained. He has an experience of 10 years. Along with the algorithm, most of the cases we are able to filter between disease and no disease. Only the grading, when it comes to, I think it requires ophthalmologist help. Because grading, when it comes to the algorithm, still there are differences. But definitely you can differentiate between 100 cases of diabetes are there. Presence of DR is only in 20 cases. The 80% of the cases can be evaluated, can be taken off the list, but can be implemented. And fundus photography is a very good source along with the DRI.
I would say that fundus photograph, whoever is, as you said in your one of the statements, you said that the fundus photographs are of fundus photographers, especially the experienced fundus photographers whom they know that diabetic retinopathy, when they take images regularly, they are reliable graders. So would you say that when you have a well-qualified technician who can take a good quality fundus photograph, who also knows whether it is referable or not referable, but if you put an AA tool, do you think it will actually act like a complementary tool, a supportive tool, so that he can make the decision much more confidently?
Yeah, definitely.
That's what it
will be definitely for the fundus photographer. He only decides between the normal fundus and the thing for which come for teleconsultation. So the AA will assist him.
Probably, as you said in your first initial slides, I think integration into different care pathways, whether it is at the physician clinic, because the physicians will be very hesitant to integrate an artificial integrate fundus camera without any some diagnostic tool also available along with the camera, even though they might be having some technician. Probably different care pathways, it will be very useful if we have AA tool along with a trained fundus photographers.
Definitely, from diabetic clinic, usually what they give is, they give it bundled with the web application. So the fundus images which are taken in go into the web application. So before going into the web application, the artificial intelligence is applied, and then it goes to the web application. The ophthalmologist, you can access it anywhere in a phone or anything. Use a password to open the thing. But what you require is Adobe Flash Player, because these web applications require that. And once you've installed that, you'll be able to open and see the features they've given us: name, age, duration of diabetes, and any history of surgery comes along with it. But they're quite well. You'll be able to recognize. As I showed one picture of ventilated nerve fiber, both the algorithm and the person at the other end thought it was diabetic. So those cases where there is a feature of, like other features which come in, like retinal hemorrhages, heart exudates, which are common to diabetic retinopathy, and other retinal diseases, might still come to the ophthalmologist.
AI has got a great role to play nowadays. As Dr. Sheila said, I think AI will be playing major role in future. But of course, this is not yet ready. The AI system is not yet ready. Particularly in our country, yet it has to take a momentum. So if the AI becomes successful, I think we can do the thousands of screening at a shorter time. With human sources, when you use them, they definitely takes a lot of time. But if the AI system is ready, within a short span of time, we can get more data, and more data can be graded. So
Artificial intelligence
Sir, here only one comment,
under
sir.
various headings. It comes under various headings. One is, it comes under the IT Act. So the government has one IT Act to be followed for telemedicine. Then it comes under medical thing, whether it comes under medical devices, software to be integrated. So it comes into the equipment part, bioengineering. Then it comes. At present, what the guidelines are saying is can support like a clinical support system, decision support system for the RMP. But the liability, if it says diabetic retinopathy or no diabetic retinopathy, the liability is on the clinician who's using it. So the liability is not on the artificial intelligence system you're using. That's what the government telemedicine 25th March 2026. For telemedicine, you have to look about whatever the IT laws which are coming in for the telemedicine platforms, artificial intelligence. That also has to be.
Sir, fundamental requirement is to have a good quality fundus image. Then only any AI tool or a human grader can work. So to do that, all these fundus photograph technicians, whoever takes the images, they should know what the basic understanding how a retina image looks, and then only they'll be able to capture a good quality image. Then all our whatever the AI tool or supporting tools which we work. Otherwise, everything becomes what has been experienced is almost 40 to 50%, especially when we don't dilate at the primary care level, non-metatic image. Almost 40 to 50% will become ungradable, and they have to be unnecessarily sent for referral again. So that's why the fundus photographer who is taking the image also should be trained in the basic what is retina, what is the picture that need to be taken, so that what is the field of view. So basic training need to be done so that we get a good yield of the system. So I think Dr. Katta is having some question. Sir, tell me, sir.
Thank you very much, madam. It's not a question. I want to add my experiences with your permission. See, I have got a book, international book, published in all languages, Art of Counseling in Patient Language to Diabetic Patient, Reduces Progress of Diabetic Complications. This I have sent to Dr. Subudhi sir also to discuss. And my suggestion is incidence of diabetes, to inform to the government to take the proper steps and guide them totally in that 1 month through published textbooks, TV interviews, Rotary clubs, Lions clubs, like that. We discuss among ourselves only. The question is, even I have got my personal experiences of my own diabetic patients being counseled, and their progress of diabetic complications have come down in a period of 10 years. This is my paper. Even I applied for publication in IJO also. So every hospital should have a counseling centers for diabetes. What is diabetes? What are the complications? What are the precautions to take? Thank you very much, madam.
Great idea, Dr. Katta. It's really wonderful idea. So in any hospital, eye hospital, you should have counselor to counsel about the diabetes and its complications and how to manage. And that is really, it's wonderful.
For the case, sir?
Actually, can I make a comment?
Please, carry on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So actually, this artificial intelligence, though many systems have come, what we have seen in our experience is that the limitation is in the fundus cameras, because as Madam has said, these cameras should be able to capture good quality images. Basically, what the requirement is, the Indian market is also very cost sensitive. So they require a very low cost camera, which can be used by any technician with very less training, giving very good quality images. So unfortunately, I've been searching for that kind of a device for the last 5-6 years, and it's not yet available in the market. So however, the AI system becomes as good as possible, but still the camera, the system has to be integrated. So basically a very good AI system, very good camera, and then ophthalmologist, everybody working together in unison. That is when you get this perfect system. Many AI companies, as you had seen, had come up, but most of them were not able to create any impact on the ground level because of the quality of the images not coming in. And I think as Dr. Madam Sheila Madam has said, having an ophthalmologist with the reporting is very important, even though the AI can do the initial stages, but I strongly feel that the final report, whether it's a normal fundus or abnormal, should not go without being seen by an ophthalmologist. So that is also very important in the end. So a very low cost camera integrated with an AI, which can do the preliminary screening, and then the final screening being done by an ophthalmologist, and some camera which can cost maybe, I think the market for India is something like 50,000, 60,000 rupees in the cost of a mobile phone. Somebody should have a camera which can be very easy to train the technician and which can give good quality images with integrated with an AI. I think it's a very tough ask from my side, but that is when this whole market of screening and screening at the level of a lab or a pharmacy or a general physician will start working.
Yes. Somebody raised their hand.
Can I comment?
Please.
Actually, I have used MI-RETCam, which is a smartphone-based photography. We can use after the dilatation. If we are seeing, our target population is around 150 or the patients who are positive for diabetes. We can do the dilated fundoscopy there also, because if we have not diagnosed properly, the second visit would be like, if we found the positive, this diabetic retinopathy is present, then we can refer them to directly to the referral to the for angiography and OCT like. And the dilated fundoscopy, we can have good pictures with the MI-RETCam. I have used that personally. MI-RETCam, no financial issues, but after the dilatation we can have very good pictures, and that is not that is cost effective also.
But in most rural areas, when we conduct camps, the government does not allow dilatation. Government rules do not permit.
The smartphone or the dilated fundoscopy?
No, rural camps I'm saying, because we do the camp and we come up. There's nowhere the patient can contact us if something happens. So the government doesn't give. And second, the patients don't like it. When they come and they're dilated, most of them come alone. So when they're dilated, for them to go back home, they find difficulty in doing their jobs. So okay, they don't like to do. That's the second.
Dialysis is always the issue in the rural areas.
This RETCam it's a slightly complicated device to use, because only ophthalmologists can take the images with the RETCam.
Yes, that is very true.
Hard to train a technician to use the RETCam, because even I tried using the RETCam. For me also it was a little difficult to take images. So training here in this model, we have to use any technician who is not even an optometrist or who can be able to take the images within, say, 1 or 2 hours of training. That is what will change the whole scenario.
All cameras need training, Dr. Senthil.
Yes.
All cameras need learning curve. Because if you see any camera technician, that camera selling person comes, take beautiful pictures because they have been used to it. But when it actually comes to the real time with the cataract, small people in the rural area, the scenario is almost like 60% versus 40, as you said.
Correct. The idealistic situation is that training should be very simple and anybody can be trained as quickly as possible. Even a physician who is not used to taking images should be able to be trained to use that. That is when we can screen this lakhs of patients, which we are aiming for.
Dr. Anupriya, would you like to present your case? Then
Yes, yes.
Then we'll continue the discussion. Dr. Nutan and Dr. Rajwinder Kaur, they want to say something. So Dr. Anupriya, you finish up your case. Share your screen. Dr. Anupriya. Till that time, Dr. Nutan, you can give your comments. Dr. Nutan.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Most of the speakers have actually mentioned properly whatever problems we are facing. But I think when we are aiming at a national level, we should aim at doing dilated fundoscopy, whether with camera, any type of instrument, because all the false positives are coming in the undilated ones. So I think the message which should go to all people, even if it is difficult in rural, should be that they should be at least semi-dilated. Physicians, family physicians, everyone should insist that the patient will have to bring someone. It is little difficult, but at least half of the population may get dilated and seen. Because only then it will make a lot of sense. When we are doing undilated, we are getting a lot of false positives with the fundus cameras. Whichever company we use, the camera is not going to give nice pictures. So if on our PDB level itself, in our message, we can make it compulsory sort of thing, only when it is absolutely not possible, we can go undilated. But as far as possible, we go for dilated. So when it's such a huge campaign, it's better to do it the proper way.
Yes.
They have to be pre-informed so that dilated fundoscopy.
Yes. So that is what the physicians, family physicians, they feel, 2 minutes only you will need. They tell the patient like that. 2 minutes chahiye, but it is not like that. We do need to dilate. So the message we have to give to everyone who is involved, lines or whatever, that they will need to be dilated. We need at least semi-dilated. 30 minutes to chahiye.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Very true.
Yeah.
Dilatation means you require an optometrist to examine the anterior chamber depth.
At least the fundoscopy fundus pictures would be very good.
No, dilatation, I agree. But you need an optometrist or somebody where the anterior chamber depth has been estimated, and then dilatation has to be done. Without an optometrist estimation of one get it.
We can do a SHIOTS actually and find out, if we are really worried about the glaucoma attacks. The SHIOTS, any optometrist or anyone who will be trained for fundus camera will be able to do. And I think we can rule out 90% of them, at least, if they get dilated. And still, of course, we have to keep our plan B, that if someone gets a red eye with pain, then they might need pilocarpine, they might need to at least consult the patient, video consultation at least with someone and find out what has happened. But dilatation for retinopathy checkups would be like primary thing. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, Dr. Nutan. I think we have actually even had a cutoff point that more than 50 years and visual acuity, if it is worse than 612, and those are cases where if you dilate, your gradability image will improve significantly, and the risk of angle closure glaucoma is actually theoretical. Even though on a policy level, Dr. Sheila, I agree completely what are the difficulties we have in rural areas, but ultimately it has to go. The risk of angle closure is almost like something like a flight accident. It is very, very rare in Asian population. There are numerous studies. But still at a policy level, at the primary care integration, having a dilated image is something we need to all work together and make it happen.
And it is also important to make the diabetic patient aware of that you have to come, you have to spend 1 hour so that they become aware for the future follow-up visits too. So proper counseling should be done. So that we have to dilate, we have to put drops, they should be pre-informed so that one visit is a full workup is done, and they are aware of the future visits too.
Dr. Rajwinder, if it's a planned screening and planned camp, it's okay. But sometimes opportunity screening and opportunity camps is sometimes very difficult to send the message, you know. So sometimes we have to do that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll finish up Dr. Anupriya's presentation. Let us see what she wants to say. Dr. Anupriya, are you there? Dr. Anupriya?
Sir, let me check. Sir, she is there.
She is
there.
Yeah, let her continue. Again,
some problem is there, I think.
Network. Dr. Patnaik, your comments.
So this is a very difficult actually situation to tackle diabetic blindness in our country especially, because one of the major thing is the awareness level is very low. So the first thing what is required is to create awareness, because many a times we see patients coming at late stage, and when we ask them, have you ever had a retina checkup? They say, no, never.
Yes,
no
sir.
one had ever advised. No one has ever advised for this checkup. So even if those who are willing to come also, we are not able to reach to them. So the question of going to the rural people and other things, my take on is on this is, unless the government is involved, this is not possible to address at the grassroots level or at village level. Because we have a system of establishment of vision center. If you can establish that, a vision center for 50,000 population with a trained optometrist or ophthalmic assistant, then he can take care of many things that we are discussing about. So because he is a trained person, he can take care of the dilatation, take care of taking photographs, and many things can be solved. So at our individual level or personal level or collectively, it is not possible to approach all the diabetics of the country if that is our target. So somehow my point is the government has to be convinced that it needs a little bit of attention of government system to develop for tackling not only diabetic blindness, all types of blindness.
Yes.
Because that is the purpose of establishing vision centers. So we as a collective group of ophthalmologists should emphasize on the government for that model of establishing vision centers as a primary eye care system. Thank you.
See,
Yes,
just like X-ray institutes, retinal imaging centers separately, counseling centers separately, treatment centers separately, incidents, awareness to the government, and guiding to the government. So in this fashion, it is easy to control, sir. Thank you.
Right. Now, Anupriya, Dr. Anupriya, please. Now you can.
Yes, sir.
Carry on.
Good evening, everyone. I am presenting a presentation. My name is Anupriya, resident in Department of Ophthalmology at AIIMS Bathinda. This is under the,
Slides are not
under
visible.
the guidance of my moderator.
Slides are not visible.
Yes, carry on. Change your slide. Yes. Now you can see, continue.
Starting with 60-year-old male presented of decrease of vision both eyes since 2 to 3 months, pain eyes which was since 1 to 2 months, sit along with headache. Vision was gradually.
Very bad network.
Yes, sir.
So this type of system, tele-screening of diabetic retinopathy.
Yes, sir. Very true.
Major issue. This is a major issue.
So when we cannot communicate with each other properly through this system, so this is very difficult to take photograph and send that for grading, and basing on that we will decide what to be done. It is a fair dream. as on today.
So we can then.
Yeah. Yes. Continue.
Yes, coming to the past history, there was history of cataract surgery with intraocular lens implantation in both eyes, and right eye is 4 years back, and left eye is back. In the patient case of hypertension since 5 years, he was on medication, which is statin 40 milligram, and he was in case of diabetes type 2 since 20 years. It was regular oral medication, which is glimepiride 2 milligram with metformin sustained release before breakfast and before dinner. On examination, doctor showed in the right eye showed plus 2.5 spherical plus 0.75 to 30 degrees, and left eye showed 0.50 spherical to minus 1.00 at 40 degrees cylindrical number. The unaided vision duty was 6/24 in right eye and the same in left eye. With pinhole, the vision was corrected to 6/12 in right eye and 6/12 part -1 in the left eye. So the best vision acuity in both eyes was 6/12. On subjective refraction.
So I think the network issue is there. So we can plan in the next.
Yes,
it is.
Because we are not able to comprehend
This is your case, Dr. Rajinder, your case, I believe. You can comment on that case.
Sir, actually that patient had cystoid macular edema both eyes. And he had IOL implanted multifocal in both the eyes. So my question was that if we find the mild NPDR changes, any changes, or the patient who is diabetic since 15 years or 10 years, we should implant multifocal. The cataract surgeon should tell them to go for multifocal IOLs or not. The multifocal IOL should be planned, should be given the choice or not, if they are diabetic.
My answer is no.
Yes.
Yeah, my answer is no. You will not give multifocals in a diabetic having a 15 years duration. So a lot of frustration will be there. So unifocal lenses are the ideal one.
So you can see the patient had the multifocal IOL and you can see the cystoid macular edema.
Right.
And one surgeon put the multifocal IOL, and after seeing the cataract in the other eye, that patient had multifocal in the other eye along with cystoid macular edema. The other cataract surgeon also advised the multifocal in the other eye too. So it was a gross, we should not go for multifocal intraocular lenses if the patient has already diabetic changes. So that was the point I wanted to point out that. And what your expert's opinion of the panelists?
The same thing. The problem is the only problem with multifocal is the glare issue.
Yeah.
So with diabetic macular edema or any maculopathy, the issue there is also aggravated. The glare problem aggravates. So definitely the visual acuity is going to reduce because of that.
And secondly, he had glaucoma cupping too. So we cannot give Ozurdex in these patients. Now we have to only give the anti-VEGFs too. And after every month, the edema is appearing.
Opinion of President, sir?
No. What is that? I didn't listen to the full thing. Tell me.
The patient had
multifocal IOL with macular edema, diabetic macular edema.
Along with cupping too.
Along with?
Cupping, glaucoma too.
And what is the complaint, patient's complaint?
So patient is not comfortable now. He is not, vision is 6/12 and he is advocate by profession.
And what is the preoperative vision?
Sir, I have not implanted multifocal. He had from some other station he had come along with the multifocal. So my question was that multifocal, if the patient is diabetic for 10 to 15 years, patient should be advised multifocal or not? if he has no changes?
No, usually they don't recommend because problem is one is you need counseling, even for a normal patient. And the second is, I think unless an educated patient, that's why educated means he has to be really intelligent because even though he's an advocate, and I think if he doesn't understand what is the multifocal, then it's a problem. I think there is a simulated video. I remember Dr. Kavita Rao showing to the patient. There is some app or something you can go through and have how the simulated vision will be after putting multifocal. Because some patients who are, I think selection of the patient is very important. Diabetic macular edema, I think you should always no multifocal.
That is one thing. In this patient, thing is we cannot predict development of AMD also in later on. So, so any patient having a multifocal at the age of 50 or 55 or 60 and developing AMD age-related degeneration at the age of again 70 or 75 becomes horrible for his day-to-day activities.
I think that question is even with the normal vision, some patients are unhappy. That's a different thing. That is why I think when you have to anticipate, particularly multifocal, just because you are an expert, you should not put it. I think a patient should ask for it. It is like some macular hole. If the vision is 6-12 and the patient, I feel if the patient is expecting too much, I don't operate. Because I'm afraid, I tell them I do the best, but you should know what to expect, reality. And I have treated all these patients. My vision may... I tell them they have to sign a consent form that my vision may improve after surgery, my vision may remain stationary after surgery, my vision may deteriorate after surgery. So I tell them only what will happen. All the three cannot happen. And everybody wants vision. And if you deteriorate, what to do, I ask them. I don't know what is your thing and all, how many % will do. Whatever you tell, patient has to understand it and it should hit his mind that, oh, there's a possibility the vision can go down. If he knows that, then he will select. Then he will ask the difference, what is the difference between this surgery and that surgery.
So my second question is, as the patient is advocate by profession, so which anti-VEGF should be recommended to him? Because bevacizumab, it is not FDA approved. So it means only Lucentis should be given as the patient.
To play safe, eccentrics.
Eccentrics.
And if he has cupping, you should tell him that Ozurdex is contraindicated. And if you want to know, you can take a glaucoma opinion, but you yourself can write it and say, saying that because of the cupping, we don't like to give steroid.
The cupping is there, definitely there. Yes, sir. Yes. So these were the two questions. Thank you, sir. Thank you for clearing.
That's the psychology of the patient, whether he's advocate or not. And secondly, you should also do what is the best for him. But at the same time, I think make him understand. And the last that Malcolm Gladwell has written in his book that more than 15 minutes if the doctor talks to the patient, and that means 3 minutes more, medical legal cases comes down to 0 or less than 1%. And the last question should be that the doctor, you should ask us, do you have any more questions? The advocate says, I don't have any more questions. I have understood everything. So repeatedly ask them, have you understood whatever I said? If you don't mind, can you let me know what have you understood? Sometimes you will tell, oh, one patient told me, I'm not a fool. I said, I'm sorry, sir, you're intelligent. Kindly let me know what you understood. I want to know whether I have conveyed properly. I don't know whether I'm a good communicator, I told him. So he couldn't fight with me.
Yes,
and if I understood, then I operate. Otherwise, I don't operate. So I recently operated that S. Kumar, no, that one who advertises for Reed and Taylor. He had a dislocated IOL and then corneal decompensated. And he keep on asking, will it be all right? Will it be all right? How to tell a lie? And I told all my team, I said, like, we inject the banana, tell them the truth. Natarajan is a great surgeon. He will remove the IOL and other doctor will put the IOL. But no guarantee. And take a video consent. I told them, don't allow them to talk to me in the morning. So I told the whole family, I'm meditating now. I will talk to you after surgery.
Yes, sir. Sir, yesterday also I saw one patient with the multifocal in both the eyes, and in the both eyes in one eye the multifocal IOL is dislocated, and in the other eye the haptic is out. Means one in the sulcus and one in the bag, and patient was complaining a lot. And I advised her the same thing, that the vision can worsen, vision can be stable, or vision may improve. Then you have to so we have to tell all the three things in such patients.
Yeah, I tell for every patient, whether it's cataract or retina, and if you have a cataract with diabetic retinopathy or maybe so I tell them whatever vision is blocked by cataract may improve. Whatever vision blocked by retina or optic nerve may not improve. So I tell them it is like milk and water together. So we cannot tell how much vision is blocked by retina, how much by cataract. And second, possibility of diabetic macular edema increasing after surgery.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that is another issue.
Even a worsening of AMD.
Well explained, sir.
Yeah.
So you can stop sharing this here, Dr. Anupriya. Yes.
Should I launch the poll now?
So
there is a small quiz.
Yeah, Dr. Shweta, Shweta, please.
Okay, sir. Good evening, everyone. There will be a small quiz. There will be 4 questions on your screen, and just kindly submit the questions. Okay.
Where do we go for it to answer? Chat or polls? What are they essentially?
Can you see it on your screen?
Yes, telescreening and diabetic
retinopathy. Yes. You can answer the questions, ma'am. Yes.
But submit की option नहीं आ रही है. आंसर सबमिट नहीं हो रहे.
Might be the co-host, that they can't participate.
Okay, that may be there.
Sheila ma'am, we can discuss the answers now. The poll has ended.
Majority of the people have given the correct answer.
Yes, ma'am. We can. Yes, ma'am. We can discuss every
all
question.
the above. Yeah, basically it is when telescreening is coming in, you need one is telecommunication, the satellite or internet connectivity. Then you have the computer part of it, hardware and software. And the important thing is you need a fundus camera to evaluate the retina, and then you need either human or artificial intelligence to report the diabetic retinopathy. So they've given all the 3. I mean, 60% is given the correct
answer. Ma'am, you're not audible.
Yeah,
I'm not audible.
It's better, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Better, ma'am.
Yes, now we can.
Okay. For telescreening, the components are telecommunications, which is internet connectivity and satellite connectivity. And then the computer part of is there, both hardware and software. And then you need the fundus camera to take retinal photographs, and you need human graders or artificial intelligence to grade whether presence or absence of diabetic retinopathy. So all three components are required. I think 60% is given.
But why there was doubt in 40% of the participants?
Ma'am, second question. There are 3 more questions in the excuse me, ma'am. There are 3 more questions. So we can discuss the remaining ones.
I'm not able to view the second question. You put the second question up?
Second question was, what are the current models of diabetic retinopathy screening?
But in my screen, it's not coming.
You need to scroll it down. You need to scroll it down.
Okay. Yeah. That ophthalmologist-based model and ophthalmologist-led model. I think both are done at different places in India. In some cases where ophthalmologists are available, ophthalmologist-based model. But most cases, it's ophthalmologist-led model where the optometrists are there and fundus photographs are taken and sent to the base hospital. Both A and B, I think 40% have given. The rest have given in others. Ophthalmologist-based model. The only difficulty is the number of ophthalmologists who are available are very less. It's one ophthalmologist per 1 lakh population. And the rural side, it's even less. So that model cannot be implemented practically. Now regarding screening for diabetic retinopathy, it is once a year it should be done. Most the American Academy and others indicate that once a year, annual dilated eye examination, because comprehensive eye examination will not replace the screening procedure. In rural side, although we take the vision, everything, it's undilated only it is done. So for a diabetic, I think temporal lesions are there, peripheral lesions are there. So it's always better to do a dilated eye examination. I think 80% have said once a year. Now the sensitivity and of a telescreening program is 80%. Again, 60% have given. Sensitivity and specificity should be greater than 80%. That is the international consensus for it. I think 60% have said the right answer. I discussed all the questions.
Thank you.
So, thank you all. Dr. Sabyasachi Patnaik, your concluding remarks and vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, madam, for excellent presentation. Going into the details of tele-screening program. So, one thing we are very clear that all the diabetics has to be screened. How is to be done, then that is a big question. Because we have less number of ophthalmologists to handle to the use diabetic population. We are thinking of all these alternatives, and this is certainly going to happen in future. May not be, it is not the right time now, but this has to happen because we cannot have all the 100% of the diabetics to be examined by ophthalmologist always possible. At no time that will be possible. So we have to think of improvising all these techniques and technologies that are now available today. But along with that, we have to see that all the diabetics, those who are coming to us for any purpose, are screened and examined. Many times that doesn't happen also. So that is the most pathetic thing. So we say that opportunistic screening, that means in every opportunity that we are getting in coming in contact with a diabetic, we should see that his fundus is examined. So if we make this as our goal, so ultimately we will be able to approach 100% of the diabetics. May not be today, but sometime in future this will be possible. Thank you very much. I thank all the participants, all the faculties, our President, Professor Natarajan sir, and our coordinator, our Secretary, Professor V.N.R. Subudhi sir, and others for making this discussion a very fruitful and useful one for all of us. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sheila Madam. Thank you, ECO also, for providing us this ECO India for this platform for to discuss detailedly about the diabetic blindness and how to prevent that. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
There should be a good coordination between the physicians, endocrinologists, and ophthalmologists.
That is correct, but
viable proposition.
There are major issues
and
in there.
endocrinologists and ophthalmologists have to agree and take this.
Because sometimes they feel that the patient they are sending to the ophthalmologist, they are coming out with negative reports. So mostly, so they don't feel the importance of examination, because if they say that we send 100 patients and 80 coming out negative. So there is no point in sending to the ophthalmologist. This is their views also. So had it been the prevalence little more, then they would have been more careful about sending those patients.
They don't know the importance of the 20% who are having the diabetic retinopathy.
That is correct.
That is just to be pressed upon them. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, President.
Thank you.
We are leaving. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Good night.